Hey there, Nation, and welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Cheapskate, and welcome to Season 2 of Meat for the Grinder, our series dedicated to Necromunda Dark Uprising Battle Reports. Meat for the Grinder is a Necromunda campaign set in the final days of Hive Arcos, where Chaos, Xenos, and Order clash for control of a collapsing Hive City. And on today's episode, the red faction of the Genestealer Cults, played by my friend Scream of the Emo, will fight in a hit-and-run scenario against my other friend Warlord Ace of Aqua-Cola of the Water Guild Outcasts, who have dedicated themselves by selling their souls to Nurgle. So who will win this scenario? Let's go ahead and talk about that real quick. So, as you can see over the top of the video here, as we're going over it, we're giving you an overview of the entirety of the battlefield. In the hit-and-run scenario, my buddy Warlord Ace will be attacking from the outside, trying to take out the members of the red faction. So with that being said, we're going to play some background music real quick. As the music is playing, we'll show you photos of both the gang rosters. If you want to go through and actually skip that part, I do have time descriptions down in the description box down below that you can click and navigate to the particular part of the battle report that you want to see. So with that being said, let's get this battle report on a roll. So the scenario for this battle report is hit and run. In this battle report, my friend Warlord Ace will be the attacker, while my other friend Scream of the Emo and the red faction will be the defenders on this one. My friend Scream of the Emo will be using D3 plus 7 randomly chosen fighters for his crew, while my friend Warlord Ace will get D3 plus 7 custom selection for his. Now my buddy Warlord Ace will be one attacking this scenario, so he gets to be able to deploy himself anywhere he wants on the battlefield as long as he's 8 inches away from enemy models, while my friend Scream of the Emo, however, is stuck in the middle of the table within 6 inches. Now he is going to play a tactic called Cult Ambush, which means he'll be able to extend his deployment area up to 9 inches, so that's exactly what he's going to do for this one as well. Now the whole goal of this scenario, of course, is for the attackers to rain down death and destructions upon the defenders. Gangs score victory points for each enemy fighter they take out of action. They also additional 2 victory points if they manage to take the gang leaders out of action as well. Now before the game even starts, of course, the defenders will get to use a special rule called I Have a Sense of Foreboding, where basically they have to take an intelligence test based on different modifiers, and they can either move or shoot for simple actions on that one as well. Now for the attackers in this scenario, which is my friend Warlord Ace, they have the Butcher and Bolt special rule, which means they can take what's called a Vanish special rule. It's a special double action. They got to pass an intelligence check, and they can get off the table, and they earn victory points every single time they do that. Now, of course, both gangs get 2 tactics cards apiece. My friend Warlord Ace will be taking the tactics A Few Friends, because they will be able to get D3+2 Hive Scum to join up with his gang, as well as back to the bad zones. That way he can evacuate if he has to. My friend Scream with Emo will be playing Cult Ambush, like I mentioned before, to expand his deployment area. And he also has forward planning, which means that before the game even starts, he can have 3 fighters in his gang actually make simple movement actions. Now, victory conditions for this one, of course, is whoever has got the only one gang left on the battlefield with any fighters, and whoever has the most victory points also wins. Now, for the rewards on this one, the attacker earns D6 times 10 credits to their stash for each enemy fighter they take out of action. At the same time, each fighter participates in the battle report also gets 1 additional experience point, and the defender also takes out an enemy leader out of action. They also did a bonus experience point for themselves as well. Whoever ends up winning gets D3 points of reputation, and whoever loses or bottles out, they lose 1 point of reputation. So that takes directly to the top of turn number 1, and both my friends roll off for initiative, and the Water Guild Outcasts will actually go first. But before we actually go to the actual activations, let's go and talk about exactly what ended up happening here. So as you can see on the tabletop, of course, we have the characters lined over here. As you can see, we got 5 additional Hive Scum with a few friends being added onto the gang. These guys are all armed with axes, las guns, as well as blasting charges, if I remember correctly. At the same time that is happening, of course, my buddy Scream the Emo does play the Cult Ambush tactic, which means that his deployment zone has been expanded by 3 additional inches. So instead of just actually being at a 6 inches at the center of the battlefield, he can go up to 9 inches. So because of his fires a little bit more scattered about. At the same time, he also decided to use the forward planning tactic as well, so that way he could also activate some of his fighters, so that way they can do simple movement actions and shooting actions before the actual scenario actually begins. So with that being said, we're going to go directly to the pre-battle sequence and start talking about some of the things that ended up happening there. So the very first thing we gotta do, of course, is use the defenders for boating special rules. Unfortunately for my friend Scream Emo, most of his guys fail his intelligence check. However, Holland the Shipbreaker does pass his, and he's gonna take an open firing shot directly at Eros Slagmas, opening fire with his heavy stubber directly at him as well. So he's gonna take a simple action to open fire, and we'll talk about exactly what happened next. So Holland the Shipbreaker opens fire and actually managed to hit Eros Slagmas twice as well. When he actually rolls to actually wound him, he does wound him 1 time. Eros Slagmas does try to take an armor save, but unfortunately for him, though, he does fail that armor save. So because of that, he does take a wound, and he's also pinned as well. At the same time that was happening, another one of the neophyte hybrids named Cole Novik does try to open fire directly at Og Mendazar, which is the Water Guild Outcast leader for this gang. Unfortunately for him, though, he does manage to hit him, and he does manage to wound him, but Og Mendazar does have a Chaos Familiar. He takes a willpower test, and he's perfectly fine, and that pretty much stops the whole foreboding special rule aspect of the game. So now that we're done with that phase, time to move on to the rest of turn number 1. So for the very first activation, what ends up happening is that Og Mendazar, the Master Nautican, decides to use his Overseer ability, manages to pass his leadership test, and puts it directly onto Temperance Vandasir, which of course is the Subnautican. The Subnautican takes a basic action in order to actually use of his first set of actions to move up directly on the top of the walkway, and his second action charge directly into Cole Novak in order to fight that guy into close combat. At the same time, little Bugby Crumb, that guy basically does a simple action move forward, another basic action activate his hot pot, his slot pot, so that way everyone within 2 inches of him will get the Friends on Fondue, which means they get Nerves of Steel as well as True Grit for the very first set of activations. So unfortunately for my friend Scream the Emo, Cole Novak has to face against Temperance Vandasir, the Subnautican. Managed to get 4 attacks, hit him 3 times, wound him twice. So because he does have to roll up on the to see what kind of injury he takes, he does get a serious injury on that one. So because he finishes him off real quick with the Coup de Grace. When they roll for the last injury on this guy, of course, he unfortunately rolls a grievous injury. So because that, Cole Novak will go out immediately out of action and also miss out in his next battle report. Because of that, Temperance Vandasir does follow through and goes directly into Holland the Shipbreaker. So because of that, now that champion now is engaged in close combat with the Subnautican. So jumping back to my friend Scream the Emo, he then decides to activate the Nightmare That Stalks, which is their Sump Beast, and that guy does have multiple limbs. So because he does have the Clamber skill, so he activates him and actually sends him rushing up that ladder directly towards Temperance Vandasir. So even though the Nightmare That Stalks can't engage Temperance Vandasir in close combat because he's not within range to charge directly into him, he does have a Lashing Tail, so because it's a 6-inch versatile trait combat attack, so because that he decides to do a basic action to launch an attack directly against Temperance Vandasir. Now the Nightmare That Stalks does manage to hit Temperance Vandasir twice. Unfortunately though, when he tries to wound him though, because he's only attacking a strength 4 against toughness of 5, he fails to wound him, so because that Temperance Vandasir is still perfectly fine. The Nightmare That Stalks was part of a group activation, so because that the cult activated Gyrus' Starn as well as with Hive and Black, the Aberrant, they decide to move up forward as quick as they can, heading directly towards the Hive Scum that are located above Mill 7, which is the corpse grinder that's over there on the other side of the battlefield as well. They're going to be heavily outnumbered, but my buddy's going to try to take his chances. Unfortunately, though, my friend Screaming does not realize that my buddy Warlord Ace does have a champion named Sing Sing who's armed with a web gun. So Sing Sing does a group activation alongside with Dire Mir. Both those guys move up forward, and then, of course, Sing Sing opens fire with his web gun directly onto Hive Black. Manages to hit him with that template blast, and to make matters worse, he does manage to wound him as well, putting a serious injury directly onto that Aberrant. So for his next activation, my buddy Screamo EO decides to activate Vener Creel, which is one of his fighters armed with a long last. He takes a basic action to aim with his long last and another basic action to open fire with it directly into Sing Sing and try to put that guy down. Now he does manage to hit Sing Sing with the shot, but unfortunately for him though, he fails to wound, so because of that, Sing Sing is only pinned at this point. So as you can see in this photo, my buddy Sing Sing, my buddy Warlord Ace's champion Sing Sing, of course, does hit the ground. He is currently pinned, so he is perfectly fine right now. That Aberrant, however, though, is not, because there's a whole bunch of Hive scum that are planning on charging directly into him and taking him out of action. Warlord Ace is up next, so he decides to activate the Headhunter, which is that Hive scum that's located there. He plans on sending him down that little ramp to charge directly into Hive Black and to take him out of action with a coup de grace. Warlord Ace, of course, is successful with the charge because it does put a coup de grace directly onto Hive Black and gives him a grievous injury. So just like that, my buddy Screamo the Emo has lost another one of his fighters in his gang. Screamo the Emo then activates Rouse the Red to open fire with his hotshot last gun directly into the Headhunter, but unfortunately for him though, he does miss his shots, so nothing much really came of it. So pretty tragic, all things considered. Warlord Ace then activates Roop Torup, who takes a basic action aim and another basic action with fire with his grenade launch directly to those two fighters on top of the gantry walkways. Unfortunately, though, he does miss his shot, so because of that, there's no harm, no foul, and that pretty much ends his activation for that turn. Meanwhile, Sue and the Emo's next activation was Harlan the Shipbreaker, who's currently engaged in close combat with the Subnauticon. He decides to try to evade him really quick and try to escape. He does manage to back off, I think, 3 or 4 inches, and at the same time, of course, Temper's Vanishir does get some attacks against him as he tries to go away, but unfortunately for my buddy Warlord Ace though, he flipped his roll, so because that Hollow and the Shipbreaker managed to escape. And just like that, Hollow and the Shipbreaker managed to slip out of the grip of the Subnauticon, and that age-old question of what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object is about to be answered, because it looks like we're going to have a huge brute beatdown between both Temper's Vanishir, the Subnauticon, as well as Nightmare That Stalks, the Sunbeast, and I can't wait to see it because we're going to see some good old-fashioned kaiju action. For Warlord Ace's next activation, he decides to activate his champion, Caria du Loral, which is his Siphonite, who does a group activation with another one of his fighters who's also armed with a hotshot last gun, basically named Tariana. So what ends up happening is that the champion, Caria du Loral, actually moves up right next to Roop Torup, who's on the other side of that crow's nest there, to make sure they're doing double movements to try to move around it to outflank the enemy, while at the same time, Tariana actually moves up directly towards that hedgehog and opens fire with their hotshot last gun directly onto the two fighters who are actually on top of the girders, trying to protect the right-hand flank. And we'll talk about exactly what ends up happening here in a second. So because of that, Tariana opens fire directly onto Nasir Desh, manages to hit him as well as wound him as well, manages to cut through that guy's hazard suit bounty armor too, so he does go crash on the ground. He does take a serious injury, so he's currently laying on the ground and he is bleeding out as well. He does pass his initiative test, so he doesn't worry about running away. However though, the other fighter that's up there as well, that character's name is Mikon, does need to take a cool test to see if he sticks around, and unfortunately he fails his nerve test because he does have to run, and he runs away 9 inches in total. So here's a close-up of Nasir Desh, who's basically on the ground right now, bleeding on the top of that girder, being hit by the chest by a hotshot last gun. And here's a close-up of Mikon failing his cool test and also running across that bridge directly to the top of that structure over there, trying to avoid being shot at as well. So because of that, the rest of the turn ends up going for my buddy Warlord Ace. He's the only one who's got fighters still left to activate on the tabletop. So the first thing the NCN did, it actually sends up one of his fighters named Treving. That's the guy who's armed with a shotgun. He does a move action to climb directly to the top of the fuel tank gantry walkway, making his way towards Nasir Desh. At the same time as well, his other Dramatis Personae champion, Eros Slagmus, does a simple action to get back on his feet, and then a simple action to move directly to the base of those fuel tanks as well. The rest of his turn is dedicated to these Hive Scum, who then try to take turns. So the Escher one, the Caldor Fighter, the Chaos Cultist, as well as the Scalp Taker. Those 4 fighters are on top of the Mill 7 Grinder. All 4 of those guys take shots directly at my friend's leader, Garrison Starr. All these guys, was a pretty dramatic, all things considered, 4 of these guys opening fire. 2 of them did manage to hit Garrison Starr, but failed to wound because of the little Chaos Familiar that kind of helped, the little Psychic Familiar that ended up helping out their Cult Adept, while the other 2 guys basically missed their shots as well. So it was pretty crazy considering how that leader survived all that firepower hitting his way. So that takes directly to the end phase of turn number 1. My friend Screaming Emo has to take a bottle test, and he does pass the bottle test, so no harm, no foul. And as you can see from the top of the screen, things are not looking really good right now for the red faction. They're slowly being completely enveloped on all sides by the Water Guild Outcasts of Aqua-Cola. Looks like Nurgle is smiling down upon my friend Warlord Ace. So now that we're done with the overview of the end phase, let's go and talk about ends of having the individual fighters during the recovery portion of the end phase. So the first guy up is Nestor Desh. He does roll to manage to recover with a flesh wound, so because he does roll over, he has one toughness less, so he is easier to wound, but he can still fight, can still shoot, and can still be a deadly threat. And my buddy Screaming Emo then rolls his cool test for Mekon. Unfortunately, he does fail his cool test, so because that Mekon is still broken, and he is still on the run. And that makes up the end phase for this one. So with turn number 1 coming to a close, we go directly to the top of turn number 2. My friends roll off for initiative, and Warlord Ace and the Water Guild Outcasts will be going first. So because of that, they will have the priority this turn, and we go to my friend Warlord Ace's first activation. So once again, my buddy Warlord Ace decides to activate Augmendazar, his Master Nautican, who passes leadership tests and puts Overseer directly onto Temper's Vanishers. We go directly into the Nightmare that stalks. He also has a group activation too with Bugby Crumb, so that way he's going to have that guy do actions as well. So Temper's Vanisher does a double action charge directly into the Nightmare that stalks and manages to hit him with 4 different attacks as well. Not only does he manage to hit him with those attacks as well, when it comes to the wounds though, he does manage to wound him 3 times. So because of that, the Nightmare that stalks does have to take an armor save. The Nightmare Stalks does take an armor save and actually manages to save 2 of those wounds, so because it does put 2 wounds directly onto the Nightmare that stalks. So Scream of the Emo does get reaction attacks with the Nightmare that stalks. He does try to strike back against Temperance Vanderseer, but unfortunately for him though, he fails to put any wounds directly onto the Subnautican, so because that, nothing much of that happens there. But remember, the Subnautican also has Overseer placed on him as well, so because that, he will go again with a basic action to a fight action against the Nightmare that stalks. So once again, Temper's Vanisher does his attacks against the Nightmare that stalks, does manage to hit him 3 times as well. So when he goes for his wounds, he does manage to wound him 2 more times with his open fist attacks. So because of that, the Nightmare that stalks does have to take armor saves, and unfortunately for my friend Scream of the Emo though, he fails his armor saves, putting the last 2 wounds directly onto the Nightmare that stalks as well. When it comes up for the injury for the Nightmare of the Stalk, it ends up being a grievous injury, so because the Nightmare Stalks does immediately go out of action, and he will not be able to participate in his next battle report as well. While that occurs, of course, Hollow the Shipbreaker does have to take a nerf test. He does pass his nerf test, so because of the Hollow the Shipbreaker, the champion's still in the fight. And because he blew past the Nightmare that stalks, Temper's Vanisher does move up directly towards Holland the Shipbreaker, so that way he can engage that character into close combat as well. And that pretty much makes up the actions on this side of the fuel tank. So for the Genestealer Cults, my friend Scream of the Emo then activates Nestor Desh, who manages to do a simple action to get back on his feet again, and a basic action to lob a blasting charge directly over to Kruging, who is the Water Guild Outcast member across from as well, so he decides to throw his grenade. Unfortunately for Scream of the Emo though, when he throws the blasting charge though, it misses, so because he does have to roll to see where it scatters to, and the horrible part is when he rolls to scatter, it flies back to where it went 4 inches back directly towards Nestor Desh, which is absolutely fantastic and horrible for my friend Scream of the Emo. So the massive fireball, the blasting charge does go off. Nestor Desh, however, does survive the blast, so he's perfectly fine. However, though, the knockback will push him off directly off the ledge of the building, so because he fails his initiative test, he goes flying off of the gantry walkway, and he plummets to the earth, but lucky for him, though, he doesn't get wounded, so he's just currently pinned after surviving a blasting charge explosion. So Nestor Desh ends up on the ground, and he is currently laying on the ground, starting to question why he ended up joining up with the Genestealer Cults in the first place, which is absolutely insane. Meanwhile, over here on the other side of the fuel tank, Holland the Shipbreaker does try to slip and evade, trying to get past Temperance Vanderseer, so he does take his initiative test to try to escape and to retreat. Unfortunately, Temperance Vanderseer does manage to get 1 hit directly off on Holland the Shipbreaker, so because of that, he does get injured, and when it comes to injury dice on this one, he is seriously injured, so he's currently laying on the ground and bleeding out right now, which is a very precarious spot for him to be in, because all that needs to happen the next turn is someone put a coup de grace on him, and he is down for the count. So for Warlord Ace's next activation, he activates Kruging, who does a simple action to move up directly on the other side of the gantry walkway. He decides to take a pot shot with a solid slug directly onto Mekon, who's on the other side of that structure on the walkway there. Kruging does manage to hit Mekon with that solid slug. He does roll up an ammo check, but my buddy Warlord Ace is able to pass that ammo check as well. Now when it goes to the wounds, of course, it does wound Mekon, so Mekon does take damage from that shot as well, and actually goes into the out of action result. So when the action rolled the injury for this guy, he does end up ending with a out cold result, so he's no longer participating in this battle report, but he'll make a full recovery, so no harm, no foul. But just like that, my buddy Scream of the Emo's forces are slowly wilting away as time goes on. So the YOLO in the air, my friend decides to activate his leader Garrison Starn, who charges directly into the Headhunter, but stays 2 inches away to take advantage of the headhunting, the versatile trait of the Shock Stave. Manages to hit him once with the auto pistol, as well as once with the Shock Stave as well, and managed to wound him both times as well. So when he came up from the injury chart on that one, managed to put a serious injury directly onto the Headhunter. So because of that, the Headhunter does immediately go out of action as well, and also adds a very cool couple experience points for Garrison Starn in the process. This does, of course, forces Diremeter, the Outcast, to take a cool test because he just saw someone get murked right in front of him. He does fail his cool test, so he does go back, I think, 7 or 8 inches and goes right behind that vehicle over there, so that way he doesn't avoid being attacked. So that part's kind of nuts. Warlord Ace then activates Sing Sing, his champion, who does manage to get back on his feet again, and with another action opens fire with his web gun directly into Garrison Starn. Now he does roll an ammo check, so he does fail his ammo check unfortunately, but the weapon is not scarce, so you can try to reload later on. But he does curtain Garrison Starn in a blanket of sticky goo, so that's going to put him to knock him out as well. Unfortunately, Garrison Starn did fail his willpower test in order to avoid being shot at, so because he does take a serious injury, so he is currently laying on the ground and he is currently bleeding out, and he's really in a really bad precarious spot because he can be taken out of action pretty simply with a coup de grace. So in order to protect his leader, my friend Scream of the Emo then activates Rouse the Red, who does a double move, moving up, move directly in front of Garrison Starn, so that way he can protect him from being charged at in close combat for a coup de grace. Unfortunately for our friend Scream of the Emo, though, Warlord Ace decides to activate one of his Hive Scum, who then decides to lob a blasting charge directly onto Rouse the Red, and actually manages to get a direct hit on that. So because of that, huge 5-inch blast template goes off and goes engulfing both Garrison Starn and Rouse the Red in a huge explosion of fireball and destruction. So with the blasting charge going off, of course, both of those guys do get wounded. So because of that, both Garrison Starn as well as Rouse the Red do take injuries on that part. So because of my friend does have to roll up for injury dice, and we actually start off with Garrison Starn, the leader, who is the first guy to get wounded. Unfortunately for my friend Scream of the Emo, though, when the injury does comes up, he gets an out of action result. So he rolls up on the elastic injury table, he rolls up a critical injury. Now he doesn't have a road doc in his gang, and he doesn't have enough credits to actually save his leader. So because of that, he does have to take a roll with his little familiar to see if he can actually ignore getting hit with that. So with the Wind of Prayer, he does decide to roll 2d6 to see if he can pass with his willpower test, and when he throws a dice, he barely scores it with a 5+ willpower test because his leader is spared the destruction that befalls him from that blasting charge. Rouse the Red, on the other hand, not so lucky. He does suffer an out-of-action result, so because when he rolls up on the serious injury table, he rolls a 33, which is basically a grievous injury, so because that, he will go out of action, and he will also miss out the rest of his next battle report because he's in recovery. So luckily for my friend Scream of the Emo, both his familiar as well as Garrison Starn both survive being blasted with that huge blasting template, and because of that, however, Garrison Starn is still in a precarious situation. Could have ended tragically with him being killed because he didn't have enough credits for a road doc, which is kind of funny because I did talk to my friend about Scream of the Emo about not getting a road doc for his gang. Is it, it's very rare that you're going to get that anymore, it's not a big deal. Well, now we know why we take road docs and hangers-ons. So with all the loss that he sustains, my friend Scream of the Emo decides to call the game at this point. He doesn't really want to lose any more fighters than he already has at this point. So because of that, the Water Guild Outcasts actually secured the victory on this one. So that being said, we're going to go directly to the after action reports and talk about the post game because this battle report is now officially over.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
Alright, now it's time to talk about the post games. The very first game we're going to talk about is Scream of the Emo's Red Faction of the Genestealer Cults. Unfortunately for my buddy Scream of the Emo, he did lose this battle report, so the first thing we're going to talk about is his injuries. First was Simon Black, who did suffer a grievous injury, so because of that, he does go into convalescence and he will miss out on his next battle report as he tries to recover from the injuries that he sustained in this battle report. Mekon also suffers from a out cold result, so because of that, he makes a full recovery no problem, so because of that, he'll be able to participate in his next battle report. Cole Novak, however, suffers a grievous injury, so because he does go into convalescence and he will not be able to participate in his next battle report as he recovers from his injuries. The exact same thing happens to Rouse the Red as well, as he suffers a grievous injury in this battle report. So because that, he will not be participating in his next game as he's in convalescence. And as for the Nightmare that sucks, I do apologize. I said he actually suffered a grievous injury earlier in this battle report, but I was incorrect on that one. He actually suffers an old battle wound. So because he does survive this, no problem, and he will be able to participate in his next battle report. However, though, at the beginning of every single game, he does have to roll a d6. If he rolls a 1, he goes into convalescence. So that is something he does have to worry about for the rest of the campaign. As for my friend, I streamed an emo from his trading post. He was able to score 110 credits from his territories during this time period as well. At the same time, he was able to recruit a new neophyte hybrid named Hive Arcos, is what his name is. He is equipped with a hazard suit as well as a chain sword. He was also able to get a blessing from this Underhive Shrine for Vanner Creel, who gets +1 to his armor save for his next battle report as well. And unfortunately for him, he did lose his Hab level, so because of that, he loses it directly towards the other gang for the Water Guild because of the number of wounds he took and the number of people went out of action for this battle report as well. Now he does able to score up 110 credits from his territories. He spends 50 credits of that to recruit a new rogue dog named Senator Jeffrey, because that was a pretty close call for his leader, so he learned the hard way that he needs to have a rogue dog for his gang. At the same time, he also spent 45 credits to purchase an auto pistol as well as photo goggles for Hive Arcos as well, so that way he's also part of the crew overall. So in the end, when it comes to the red faction, he doesn't actually score any reputation for this battle report. So he's still at reputation number 1. He actually has no wins and has also accrued 1 loss as well. At the same time, he only has a settlement as well as Underhive Shrine for his territories, and he has 15 credits in his stash. His new gang rating now with all of his upgrades is 2,165 points. And lastly, we have Aqua-Cola, which is a Nurgle-corrupted Water Guild Outcast gang that is played by my friend Warlord Ace. They managed to pull off the victory on this battle report, so let's talk about some of the things that happened with his gang in the postgame. So first of all, let's go and talk about the Dark Ritual real quick. My friend Warlord Ace does have to do the Dark Ritual because he is a Nurgle-corrupted gang, and Tariana was actually randomly selected to be chosen as the vessel. She managed to earn 4 experience points, and they also maintain the blessings of Nurgle with this as well. And speaking of advancements, Tariana also leveled up to level 1, but she becomes a gang specialist. So because of that, she also learned the Overwatch skill, so that way she can interrupt enemy activations during her turn, which also increases her credits by 20 credits as well. And because she is a specialist, my buddy Warlord Ace decided to purchase a melt-a-gun. After watching what my guy can do for my leader with his melt-a-gun, she decided to do exactly the same thing with his gang. So because of that, now Tariana is also packing one as well. Tariana then takes the Hotshot Last rifle with the Hotshot Last pack that they have and put it directly into the stash in order to equip future fighters for this gang. Temperance Vanderseer also leveled up to level 1 as well and got +1 to his movement characteristics. Now he's movement 5, makes him even faster and deadlier, and also increased his credit value by 10 credits. And the Outcast champion Sing Sing also leveled up to level 1 as well. Managed to roll for his primary skill to see exactly what skill he would get and rolled a 1, so because he now has the fast shot skill and also increased his credit value by 20 credits as well. So now this guy can either decide to move and then shoot with his hip shooting with his web gun, or he can shoot it twice if he wants to. So this guy is super deadly with that web shooting thrower that he also has as well. Now, when it comes to the territories they have, the Chaos Fan that they have, they actually recruit a new Outcast Hive scum named Sotello, and that fighter, of course, is equipped with Hazard Suit, Last Gun with Hotshot Last Pack that was from originally belonging to Tariana, as well as a Last Pistol, as well as Photo Goggles as well. They also managed to drum up 30 credits from that territory. At the same time, from their Slave Pit, Sing Sing earned additional 3 experience points. Same thing with Temperance Vandersteer, also earning an additional experience point on top of that, and also earned 50 credits on top of that. They also managed to capture a Hab level that was originally belonging to the Red faction, but they managed to take it from them because of all the casualties they caused in that gang. From that territory, they managed to drum up 40 credits and also increase the reputation by 3 points as well. The last of their territories is a settlement, and they're able to recruit another Outcast Hive scum. That person's named Pontian, and that guy, of course, was equipped with a Hazard Suit as well as a Last Pistol. He ends up giving his Last Pistol directly over to Sotello, and at the same time managed to get Photo Goggles as well as twin needle pistols for this fighter as well. And at the same time, they also managed to drum up 40 credits from the settlement also. Now, when combined with the credits they got from the scenario, they managed to earn 220 credits from the scenario for the number of fighters they put out of action, as well as 160 credits from their territories, giving 380 credits in total. With those 380 credits, they purchased a Melt-A-Gun for Tariana, which we mentioned before. Sotello got Hazard Suit as well as Photo Goggles, as well as a Last Pistol with a Hotshot Last Gun from the stash, and Pontian got Photo Goggles as well as twin lethal pistols as well. They also took 50 credits and also recruited a Rogue Doc named Old Sawbones, just because they saw exactly what my friend Scream the Emo went through. So Warlord Ace didn't want to go the same problem and decided to recruit a Rogue Doc at the same time. So because of that, he took the 25 remaining credits he had left in his stash, and he put it directly into that stash for safekeeping in the future. So in the end, Aqua-Cola, of course, is still dedicated to Nurgle. They're still in line with Chaos. They're currently looking at a record of 1 win as well as 0 losses. The new gang right now is at 2,510 points, and they have 8 points reputation in total. They now have a Chaos Fane, a Slave Pit, as well as a Hablock and Settlement for their territories, and they also have 25 credits in the stash. So that's good for this, you guys. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is invaluable to us as always. Also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blog.com for all those greatest Hive news related to this channel. That's good for this for Battle Report, you guys. We'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out and stay classy.